It is Tuesday, November 4th. This is the Christian Commute. I am your host, Seth Dunn. And you are riding... Where are you riding with me? You're riding to Buc-ee's. I'm out of gas. And I think I have enough gas to get there and get a free car wash. I want to keep this car clean because I'm still thinking about selling it. So it's not free. It costs $1. Actually, it's going to cost $4 because this car only holds 12 gallons of gas. Leaving all my nicer cars at home. I do have, wonderfully for you, a full show for you. But it is the last full show I will have for the foreseeable future because it's the last question in the inbox. I don't know if I'm going to come to work Thursday or Friday. I don't know if I'm going to come to work both days. I'll say that. Budget season is upon us. Budget season on top of month-end close. I've done most of my month-end close work because I'm just that efficient. But budget season is upon us, and I'm going to be just buried with that budget work. So I got a lot of little tedious things that I have to do to prepare for that. So I might just work from home one of those 2 days. We'll see. And if I do, no show for you. I'm sorry about the cough. I have the fall perma cough. I just got off the phone with one of my friends who thinks I'm sick. He's like, "Is there mold in your basement?" I was like, "I don't think so. I think it's just my fall perma cough." Today's show title, should you choose to accept it, is Gig Eva. Gig Eva. Well, that's what we were supposed to talk about last time. And then I went on it. What did I go on a tangent about? I went on a tangent about little rubber Jesuses. Little rubber Jesus tangent. That's what I went on a tangent about. I don't know if I got an interesting day at church Sunday. I might go off on a tangent here. We'll see. Do I call an audible? I don't know. We'll see. Luke chapter 10. We're in Luke chapter 10, verses 17 through 20. Luke chapter 10, verses 17 through 20. We've just gotten finished with the woes that Jesus pronounced on the Jewish cities, comparing them to the Gentile cities. The miracles that were worked in you were worked in Tyre and Sidon. They would have repented in sackcloth and ashes. I heard Josh Howerton misapply that verse as a proof text of an argument this morning on a Facebook reel. But I agreed with what he was generally saying. He just misapplied the verse. So, oh well. Oh well. Talking about the 70. The 70 returned. Chapter 10, verse 17. The 70 returned with joy, saying, "Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name." And he said to them, "I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and all the power of the enemy, and nothing will injure you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven." So he sent out the 70. They've been going from town to town. I'm going to point this out. There's people in the towns rejecting them and rejecting the gospel message. But when they come upon demons, the demons are subject to them. So what are they doing? Well, they're probably casting demons out. They're going from town to town. There's people who give them hospitality and accept them. And there's demon-possessed people there, and they're casting those demons out. Demons who might attack other people, going crazy and doing whatnot, as demon-possessed people tend to do. The demons cannot harm them. The forces of the kingdom of Satan, the prince of the power of the air, the little g god of this world, cannot stop them. Now, prince of the power of the air, little g god of this world, that's not from Luke. That's from other New Testament books. But that's what's going on. And they come, and that's what they tell Jesus. Even the demons are subject to us in your name. Now notice, the demons are not subject to them. They're subject to them in the name of Jesus. Jesus is the one who gave them authority. He's the one who sent them with purpose and sent them with power. It is Jesus to whom the demons are truly subject. And they're very happy about this, and that's why they're telling Jesus, but that's what they're rejoicing in. And he follows that up. He says, listen, none of the scorpions and serpents are not going to harm you. And I think scorpions and serpents here are representative of demonic forces. I don't think it's talking about literal scorpions and literal, what kind of snakes did they have over there? Do they have asps? I don't know what kind of poisonous snakes they had in Israel at that time. Vipers, asps. Is an asp a viper? I don't know. But you think of like scorpions sting, they're poisonous. The danger of a scorpion is not the pincher, it's the stinger. It's like you're going to step on them and they're not going to harm you. It's like the demons can't set traps for you that are going to injure you. You're going to step on them. I think about stepping on the head of the serpent from Genesis chapter 3. That's what that calls to my mind. But Jesus says, don't rejoice in that, because that's what they're rejoicing in. They're rejoicing that the demons are subject to them. He says, don't rejoice in that. Rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven. That's where the true blessing lies. That's where the true power lies. Having a name recorded in heaven, no matter what goes on in earth. And Jesus has this phrase here, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Is that talking about the fall of Satan? Is that talking about Satan striking out? So I want you to think about this. Lightning comes out of the sky, and what's it do? It strikes, right? Because you have different kinds of lightning. You have like the summer thunderstorm lightning. You see that it just kind of flashes in the sky. You guys know what I'm talking about. You see that lightning. But then you have that bolt of lightning that falls from the sky. And what does it do? It strikes the earth with violence. So it'd be great if you guys, I guess I could have done it on the Google machine before I left. If you look this up, is Jesus saying here, this is for us to think about, is he saying, I saw Satan trying to attack you, I saw him fall from heaven like lightning? Like he's trying to get you, but he can't because I'm protecting you. Is that what he's saying? Is he hearkening back to a time maybe before Genesis 1? Causally, but not temporally. I mean, that's kind of funny, because Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That cosmologically, that time began there too. Hold on, my wife's calling. That was my wife, indeed. She made tuna helper for dinner. I don't know if that's an attack from Satan. I ain't eating that. That's a first world problem for you. The dinner that was made for me, I'm not going to eat that. I'm sorry. I can eat tuna with ketchup, just barely, but tuna helper, I don't know. I'm not eating that. Anyway, I was talking about Satan. Some people think that when Jesus is saying, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning, he's referring back to the fall of Satan. I don't think that fits this context. Jesus certainly saw that as the pre-incarnate Christ and second person of the Trinity, but I don't think that fits that context. I tend to think he's talking about an attack from the kingdom of darkness on God's people. That's what I think he's talking about, and how they're being kept safe. And falling from heaven like lightning, maybe that's an idiom, a type of phrase they used back then that we don't use now. I don't know. Look it up. But I don't think it really changes the general point about what this passage means. The rejoicing should be that your name's in heaven. Think about the people who accepted the preaching of the disciples, of the 70 as they went out. Their names are written in heaven too, because they accepted God. They accepted Jesus, and accepting Jesus, they accepted the Father. So that's good. Those people, maybe they are and maybe they aren't protected from the schemes of Satan, the attacks of demons. I mean, in some way they were protected. The disciples were casting out demons in their cities. But what's the rejoicing? Not that demons are subject to you. Is that you're a subject of God. And what do I mean by subject? Because we're all subordinate to God. The earth is the Lord's and everyone's in it. So what do I mean to be a subject? More, I guess a better word would be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. A member of the nation of Israel, subject of the king. Because think about a mighty king, you're not his subject, well, he can still come in with his army and crush you, can't he? But if you're a subject for the king, he's not there to crush you, he's there to protect you, he's your king. So there you go. And with that, we'll end the Bible chapter review. Let's go to the question. I think I can get this in before I stop at Buc-ee's. Jeff from Slow Driving, Florida writes, imagine a situation, I have to imagine this is some real life situation he knows about, because it's really too specific not to be real. Imagine a situation where, or what do you do in a situation where you're a pastor of a church and you have a statement of faith or a confession of faith for your church, maybe even a church covenant. And it's not necessarily like a contract, because some people sign church covenants when they join a church. Those aren't enforceable in court. Not that members of a church should ever take one another before law, but it is some kind of formality. There's some kind of understanding. Whether it's a signed covenant or a confession of faith or whatever, you have a new believer join your church, and let's just presume it's somebody who gets saved. They don't know Jesus is Savior, and they're a new convert, and they don't know anything, right? They're a new convert. All they heard the gospel, and they get saved. When you hear the gospel, do you know about the Trinity and once saved, always saved? And do you know why baptism is like it is? Do you know about ecclesiology? Do you know about what the Holy Spirit does? You don't know any of that. You haven't read the Bible. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I was raised in church, so I've just always known church things. I've always known the Ten Commandments. I've always known who Noah and Moses were. I always know who Jesus was. I always know who the apostles were. I knew the names of I don't know what the minor prophets said in Haggai and Malachi, but I know they're prophets. It's like, I just know. Let's say there's somebody who's a new believer and they join your church. Maybe they join through baptism, statement of faith, or whatever. And then they stop believing what the statement of faith says of the church. And I guess you could also apply this to any church member. So what do you do when there's a church member who stops believing the statement of faith? And Jeff sort of doubles down on his question. They're not doubting something about baptism. They're not doubting something about ecclesiology. They're doubting something about the Trinity, like about the Godhead itself. And I think, the second paragraph of the London Baptist Confession at the end, it says that the truth of the Trinity is how we relate to God and other Christians. It's something you can't reject. It says, what do you do as a pastor? And by the way, Jeff, I think the question is, what do you do as a church? Not just what do you do as a pastor. What you're talking about, Jeff, is somebody apostatizing. So I don't know that there's much for you to do, because apostates leave. So if you have somebody who comes under a conviction, like maybe they come under the conviction that we're supposed to baptize infants, I think that person would say, I have come under the conviction that we're supposed to baptize infants, so I'm going to find a Presbyterian church to go to. And the Baptists are like, okay, we think you're wrong, but I understand that. And when contacted by your Presbyterian church, we'll tell them that you are a member here in good standing, and you're perfectly perfect in every way, except that you stopped believing in baptism like us, and now you believe like them, and what you might call an amicable breakup. But I think Jeff's talking about something where no church is going to accept them, because if they become an egalitarian, some church somewhere is going to accept them. If they believe that you can lose your salvation, some church somewhere is going to accept them. If they stop believing in the Trinity, even a nominal Christian church would reject them. So what do you do if somebody stops believing? Well, you might have to do nothing, as in this thing would work itself out, because this person would come and say, hey, Pastor, I don't believe Jesus is God anymore, or I don't believe the Holy Spirit's God, or I don't believe in salvation anymore because I just don't buy any of this, and I'm not going to come to church anymore because I don't believe. All right, sorry about that. Wish I could change your mind. You want to talk about it? No? All right, bye. So obviously anybody who doesn't believe the statement of faith after being corrected should be disfellowshipped. The Bible talks about this. You correct somebody, correct a factious man a couple times, and if they won't listen, you gotta cut them off. You gotta send them away. Now, whether that person is going around trying to tell everybody who's a church member that the Trinity is not real or not, maybe it's just his own personal belief that he keeps to himself, he's a factious man. Whether he's trying to create his own faction or not, and most false teachers will, I think. But because a heresy is a self-chosen opinion. So he has his self-chosen heretical opinion, and you have to separate from the heretic. So Jeff, I think as the pastor, what you're supposed to do is try to talk to this person and understand why they've come to believe what they believe. Show them from the scripture where they're wrong, and ask them if they'll repent of their faithlessness and come back into the fold. And if they won't, I think you have to bring it up before I guess you have to take the steps. Get 2 or 3 witnesses, maybe grab some deacons to go with you, or some other elders to go with you, and say, hey, are you really still believe this, Pastor? The pastor said that you believe this heresy. Are you really rejecting this out of our statement of faith? And most importantly, are you rejecting this out of the Bible? Because the church's statement of faith is just their summary or interpretation of the Bible. The Bible's the ultimate authority. If you came to my church and said, what's your authority? We wouldn't say the London Baptist Confession 1689. We'd say the Bible. And they say, well, why do you have the LBC 1689? Well, because we think it summarizes it well. So if not convinced by those 2 or 3 witnesses, you have to reject the factious man. You take it before the church, and you would disfellowship this person and let him be to you as an unbeliever. Now, Jeff specifically said in his questions, he said first tier doctrines. You guys who listen to this know I don't buy into the whole first tier, second tier, third tier thing. If it's in the Bible, it's God's truth. It is what it is. Now, somebody going to go to hell for believing you're supposed to baptize babies? No. Are they going to go to hell for rejecting salvation by grace through faith? Yes. They will. So if by first tier you mean something you believe, if you believe this, you'll go to hell, whatever. But there's plenty of people who are going to heaven who can't be a member of my church because they don't believe what we believe about all these other doctrines. So I'm going to tell you, Jeff, if I had somebody at church and me just as a member, and I found out they didn't believe something that lined up with the church confession, I myself would take steps to try and correct them. And if they wouldn't be corrected by me and 2 or 3 other guys, I would take steps to try and have them disfellowshipped. There's a guy that comes to mind at First Baptist. I remember, I've told this story before. This was years ago. My wife visited there on a Wednesday while we were at Rolling Springs, the Demonic Church of Freemasonry, which didn't have a big Wednesday service like First Baptist did. And she went there on a Wednesday, and I went over there to find her when I got home from work, and found her in an eschatology class about Revelation. And then I was just kind of talking to the teacher, because she, woman teaching men, that's a whole nother thing. She was, talking that grasshopper Apache helicopter nonsense. And her son-in-law started talking to me as like how this guy, he's not drinking the Kool-Aid either. But I got no conversation with this guy. This guy was denying the general resurrection. And I was like, what? Not only can you, and I'm thinking to myself, not only should you not be a Sunday school teacher, and he had been one in the past, and not only should you have not been a youth minister, and he'd been a youth leader, he had been a youth leader over at some other church in town in the past, but you shouldn't even be a church member. You're a heretic. I wasn't a member of that church, so I didn't, do anything about it. But I remember thinking, I would never want to be a member of this church, because they let people like that be members. Forget it. Forget it, man. So, pastor or not, what you got to do when somebody stops believing, Jeff, is you disfellowship them if they won't repent of their unbelief. Does that mean they can't come and sit and listen to sermons? No. But they can't be considered formally a member of a church. Like if it's somebody's spouse, right? So, if I get home tonight and my wife tells me, I just don't believe in the Trinity anymore, it doesn't mean that we can't go to church together. It just means she can't be a church member. You see what I mean? And that would be the situation to apply to anybody. Yeah, like there's some family in the church. I mean, there's 4 kids in the youth program, and the dad just I don't believe anymore. All right, man, well, you can't be a church member. Your wife can still come here. You can still sit by her. Y'all can still come to Wednesday night dinner. Your kids, if you want, they're your kids. Your kids want to still come to the youth group, fine. But you can't be a member here. And if you start espousing this stuff to people, you can't come at all. All right? Anybody can just come sit in church and listen. But then if you start trying to stand up during the church service and talk Muslim stuff to them, like, no, man, you got to go. And I'm going to pause right here because I'm at Buc-ee's. I'm going to get gas, and I'm going to find something to eat that ain't what is it? A tuna helper. All right, welcome back. I am out of the car wash, and I ate a brisket burrito. How long does it take to eat a brisket burrito? About the same amount of time as it takes to get your car washed. And it was good. You guys know I love brisket. But whenever I go to Buc-ee's and get the brisket sandwiches, it's a terrible mess because you don't have a plate. You don't hardly have any napkins or anything. It's just you unwrap this very saucy, messy sandwich. It falls apart everywhere. So I got a burrito. Burritos are self-contained. And it was good. A lot better than tuna helper. Now I got an Arnold Palmer too. Let me finish this off. They get you with that pellet ice. Then any room for your drink. So now, do I want to talk about Gig Eva, or do I want to punt down the road again? I'm going to punt down the road again because we're talking about, what am I going to title this? This is, you can't come here. When to tell somebody who's not a member, you can't come to our church. When to tell somebody who's not a member, you can't come to our church. So I think normally I would just keep going with Gig Eva, but with the timing of Jeff's question and sort of what went down at my church recently, I think it can't be coincidental. Let me just talk about this. So to end Jeff's question, we talked about, what do you do when you have a church member who becomes heretic, and the answer is you disfellowship the heretic, but they still could come to church and in some ways take part in church life if they want to come sit by their wife on Wednesday night dinner. And listen, a lot of you can imagine their behavior might not even change. You don't even have to kick them off the church softball team, if you don't want to, especially if they're good. But their behavior might not even change. They might even keep giving because my kids go here. It's good for the community. We're going to keep giving. But whatever it is, they're not drinking the Kool-Aid anymore. They don't believe. All right, then. But you don't just say, you can't come here anymore. And you would only tell somebody that they can't, a non-member, that they can't even come sit in your church services anymore if there's some kind of existential threat to the church. If there's a disruption in some way, or if they're trying to spread their heresy or something, then you might say, all right, you can't come here. And my church had a situation recently where we had to say, you can't, don't come back. And I try to be sensitive about this because I've been in that situation before with the demonic church of Freemasonry who disfellowshipped me, and they said, all right, the bylaws say we can disfellowship somebody who we view as harmful to the church. Like, all right, you view the person telling the church that we shouldn't have Freemasons here as harmful rather than the Freemasons? Okay, see y'all later, shake the dust off my feet. But I've been removed from a church before, so if somebody else has been removed from a church before, I just don't want to say, you've been removed from a church, there's something wrong, something about you, I've got my eye on you, you can't come here. I don't want to be like that, but I also want to be like, well, maybe they had a good reason to remove it. So I've been disfellowshipped from a church, and the disfellowshipping was not only are you not a member, don't even come back on our property or you're trespassing. I know you've never threatened anybody or been violent or any way, but you've been too much of this Freemason thing, man. Go on. It's like, you ain't got to tell me not to trespass. I ain't coming back here. So I've been through that. And I've been through the situation at First Baptist where they said, we don't even want you to come here. Now, we know you're not a member, but because you have this Y Cross Point website, we don't even want you to come here. I was like, all right, if that's how you feel, you do you. Like I said, all right, I won't. You tell me not to eat my Brussels, that I don't have to eat my Brussels sprouts. All right, I ain't gonna eat them. You do you, guys. Now, I think I've said, the funny thing about that is before, the Crosspoint people talk to me just super friendly. My friends across, I saw a guy going to the gym the other day who's a friend of mine that he and I used to attend another church together. Hey, he was wearing a Crosspoint bracelet and a Crosspoint t-shirt. Hey man, how are you? We talked for like 10 minutes. My friend. But for some reason, First Baptist didn't like that. Whatever. Y'all do you. So I've been in that situation, and I came to my church with that baggage and with that background and said, hey, I'm applying to be a member here. Well, where were you at church before? Obviously you've been a Christian your whole life. Why are you showing up here? Because that's what you ask somebody. Why are you at our church all of a sudden? If you grew up a Christian, why us? I said, hey, we got this. I gave my spiel over there, and what do you expect? How do you expect that story to go to Reformed Baptist Church? Oh, you stood up against the Freemasons and they kicked you out? Of course they did. Good for you. Oh, you have a website that tells people not to go to the seeker-sensitive Ayatollah of rock and roll, a coffee bar, goat church in the purple haze with Pastor Electric Blue? Good for you. Nice website. It wasn't a problem because I had an explanation. And I was thankful that somebody gave me a chance to give them the explanation. So knowing that there can be these reasonable explanations out there, I don't want to blanket ban people who come to my church and they're not in good standing with the one they left, but at the same time, I do want to think, well, maybe these guys had a reasonable explanation over here. So we had a guy who's been coming to our church for several months, and he had applied to join, and is it a petition to join? I guess it's a petition to join the lodge. It's an application to join the church. I don't know. These things are not in the Bible. But his membership was never put to a vote, and I can tell you it would have been voted no. And this guy got all mad about something. He's one of these dudes, you just have to know him. He got all mad about something last week, and he wrote us all a text message on our church text like, I want nothing to do with y'all. I formally disassociate from having anything to do with y'all. Don't talk to me, just leave me alone. Because he'd gotten mad about something. No one had done him any wrong. And it wasn't a doctrine problem. So, I mean, we changed the locks on the church. Because he had a key, because he'd been doing some cleaning for the church. We changed the locks. You know, we got our eye out for this guy now. So I'm sitting in church Sunday. I don't know, maybe it's about 12:30. We go long at our church. It's almost black church long. And the pastor's almost done. But it's a time that anybody who knows, we're still going. And all of a sudden I look up and this dude is there. Walks into our church building during this worship service. Walks in the side door. Walks all the way around the back to where I was. And I stand up, I'm like, all right, something's going down here. Because you ain't supposed to be here. Walks up to the platform, the stage, quote unquote stage, the platform, while the pastor is preaching, unplugs some piece of audio equipment that he had either given or loaned the church. I don't know. He did some microphone setup. And he unplugged his little piece of equipment. So you're talking about like a little $20 piece of equipment type thing. It's not like a subwoofer that costs thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars. And walks off. Like walks out the door. And then drives off, or his friend drove him off. So we called the police and issued a no trespass to him, where if he comes back, we're going to have him arrested. Now this is after 7 months of this guy been going to our church. At some time, there's going to have to be the conversation. You're not a member here. You've expressed interest in being a member here. But the answer is no. And we don't want you to come back. Rarely is a church going to say that to anybody. Because churches want to grow. Even Reformed Baptist churches like ours, who believe we're all predestination from forever ago, predestined from forever ago. We want to grow. Of course, we want to grow and disciple people. So it just almost seems antithetical to church culture to tell somebody to go away, but eventually you got to figure out it's time for you to go. Oh, God. Excuse me. And I think the bulk of this decision making scripturally is going to fall on the pastor, even in a congregational church. Because the pastor is the episkopos, he is the overseer. So there, aside from preaching and management, there's a degree of protection and looking after the flock not only say like looking after the flock within the fence, because imagine, I don't know if they had sheep pens back then like we do now, but so you imagine your flock is in a sheep pen. There's looking after the flock in the pen, and there's also protecting the flock from the wolves or the coyotes or the poachers trying to get in the pen. That's part of pastoring too. So I'd say that role primarily falls to the pastor, but also the members have to say, hey, pastor, I don't know if you know this, but this dude has been acting this way, and we need to address it. So let me tell you my experience with this particular person. He'd been at the church for a few months, and I guess my radar was already up on him. It's the kind of person you're around for a little while and you say, I will never leave my kids with this person ever. I don't want my kids around this person, especially not alone. And if it's somebody's like first 2 weeks at church, you can't say, hey, weirdo, there's something that I just sense about you. My weirdo radar is going nuts. And I don't want you anywhere near my kids. And I don't want you here. But you can't say that. It's like when you're on the church softball team, you can't say, go away, Ronnie, you're terrible. You can't hit your weight in slow pitch softball. Go do something else. You just can't say it. But that's the sense I'd always had. Always had about this guy. I learned later, and he told me this, mentioned it like it was nothing, that he was a convicted felon. So I was like, oh, okay, you're a convicted felon. How did I know you were a convicted felon? And then it's, you don't even have a GED, because I can't find a job. He'd have trouble finding a job because he didn't have a GED. And it's like, here's the thing. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that you have to have a GED to be a church member and be accepted in church. Nowhere in the Bible does it say if you're a convicted felon, you can't find the grace of God and be accepted at church. In fact, maybe church is the only place a genuinely saved and reformed convicted felon is going to be accepted. So I've put myself in this position, this is my thinking, and I can't speak for anybody else. It's like, I don't want to be the hoity-toity swimming tennis guy. Like, my childhood was vastly better than yours, obviously. For whatever reason, you didn't finish high school. I have 2 master's degrees. One of them being seminary. You're not somebody that is going to be in my orbit that I'm going to make friends with in the world. There's going to be people that I make friends with when I'm out in the world. Friends from work. Some of my friends from work go to church, some don't. So friends from work, friends from coaching ball. Like some of my friends that I know from coaching ball or being a parent on a ball team, some of them go to church and some don't. All right. But I'm going to make those friends, and those people are going to be in my orbit. Even, because those are the people I see at the pool. Those are the people I see at the tennis court. So I don't want to be the person in James, right, where I want the guy adorned in gold to have a good seat at church, and I'm going to put this other dude. I don't want to be that. I want the gospel and the koinonia, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, to pierce through these differences. Neither slave nor free, right? That we don't have slavery where I'm from. We're both free men, but economically, I got a lot more freedom than this dude, right? So I don't want to exclude this person that way. But at the same time, I don't even want you in the same room with my kids, bro. Forget it. And you can't say this. But this dude, I can just say this dude did a lot of weird stuff. Stuff that made me suspicious. Especially when you're a small church and somebody of poor economic means comes, you start thinking, is this person in church for charity? To kind of mooch off of people. And I started to get the sense like, I don't know that this guy believes like we do. He's trying to mooch off of us. He acts like he wants to be real service-minded towards the church. But I think he's just being obsequious and trying to ingratiate himself. I don't even know if he really believes in Reformed theology, because his story coming was, well, I came from these other churches, but I'm Reformed and they're not, so they've rejected me, and they wouldn't listen to me when I talk about whatever music we were supposed to play, or, we shouldn't do Joyce Meyer Hillsong, stuff like that. So that kind of story, think about that. It resonates with everybody. Yeah, that's what happened to me too. When you come telling that story, especially in the South, the dispensational Bible Belt where we are, Hobbes Rogers traditionalism land, like, oh yeah, we've all had that experience where you go to a church where the website says the Father chooses people, and if you bring it up, people in the church get mad at you. So we don't believe that. So yeah, we've all been through that. And I started to suspect, I think this person's playing us by saying what he thinks we want to hear. That's what I think. Maybe I'm, what's the word? Not skeptical. I can't think of the word. Because I'm 43 and I used to be so good at words. So good at words. The skeptical is not the word I'm looking for, but it's a word that's very similar. Pessimistic. I don't want to be like that. But I'm getting this suspicion. The straw that broke the camel's back, I was getting to, it had to do with my car. But if I want to rewind a minute, he had been going to our church for less than a month. And he got on our group text, and listen to what he did. He assigned groups, like of the men in the church. You're in group 1, you're in group 2, you're in group 3. And this is, you guys, group 1 go to this neighborhood, group 2 go to this neighborhood, group 3 go to this neighborhood. We're going to go door knocking and invite people to church. And I was like, number one, little tiny Calvinist churches don't go neighborhood door knocking like your mega churches do. Like, that's not how we operate. Like, he was like, we'll go over here to this neighborhood, Carter Grove. And I told him, I said, hey man, if you go door knocking in Carter Grove, they're going to ask, first thing, does your church have a youth group? Well, no, we don't have a youth group. Door knocking and inviting people to church is inviting people who are looking for some church feature or service. Like, what kind of songs do you sing? Do you have a lot of young people? Do you have something we can get involved with? If you go to a small church, not just a Calvinist church, if you go to a small church, you're not looking for those things, especially if you're going to Reformed Baptist Church. If you go to Reformed Baptist Church, it's because you believe it. It's like if you go to a snake handling church. You believe. That's why you go there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be around them snakes, right? So if you're going to go to a little Calvinistic church where we live, it's just because you believe. And you're doing it in spite of them not being big, in spite of them not having a youth program, all right? So number one, it's like kind of wrong-headed. And number two, it's who in the world are you, guy who's visited our church 3 or 4 times, to, without being asked, develop an outreach program and just put yourself in charge of it? That was super weird to me. And I wanted to be like, who do you think you are? And I'm like, I'm the pastor or the deacon, or tell him, who do you think he is? I'm not going to do it. And truthfully, honestly, number 3, I don't want to go door knocking with you, inviting people to church, because the minute people see you, they'll never come to our church again. Like, I don't want you to say that you go to, and that sounds horrible. And it's not because you're poor. It's not because I didn't know he was convicted of the felon at the time. It's because I think you're weird. There's something wrong with you. I can't put my finger on I'm going to tell you right, if you feel like that about somebody, it's probably true. But listen, you can't just go banning people about from church who are visiting potential members because you think they're weird. Because there's something you can't put your finger on. When we get on down the road, he kind of keeps doing stuff like this. Always posting about our church on Facebook. You know, like, you're not a member here. And I found out later, I didn't know this at the time, I found out later he tried to join the church the first week he visited. Which, you may be able to do that at Big Box Baptist, but that's not going to fly at a Reformed Baptist church. Or a church that takes membership seriously. They wouldn't do that at Rolling Springs. I mean, it's not going to happen. I don't know what First Baptist would do, but it's just not going to happen. But there had been a couple churches in town where, according to him, that he'd been, and they just let him join on the first week. Not ours. But I had been talking about I'm going to sell this Kia Soul, the very Kia Soul that I'm driving. And, you know, I think I'd get $2,500 for it if it's in good condition. At the time, there was a leak problem that I couldn't identify. My cousin fixed it later. I think I mentioned that. So now I've got it in like saleable condition. I put a new radio in it. Like if I wanted to, I think I could turn around and sell this car for $2,500, $3,000. But at that time he was asking about it because he had totaled his car. He bought not a new one. He bought a replacement, and that car stopped running. And he was inquiring about buying my car. I was like, well, I don't know how much I want to sell it for yet. I'm still thinking about it. Like, I didn't think anything weird about somebody wanting to buy my car. And when you think about what an old, dilapidated car this is, I mean, it's a 2010 Kia Soul. Like $15,000 new. So he's somebody at the station in life where that's the kind of car he would end up with. Well, why do I drive it? Because my dad gave it to me. And I just kind of like it. And it's paid for. And it gets better gas mileage than my other cars. And I don't want to wear out my other nicer cars to Dalton. It's got a good radio. The heat works. The air conditioner works. And I'm going to drive it to Dalton a couple days a week. That's why I have this car. It's a lot nicer than it was new. But if this car blows up, I'm not going to go find me another 2010 Kia Soul. I'm going to go take my sky-high credit rating and go to the car dealership and say, hi, I'm the accountant from the Swin and Timmis dealership. Check my credit rating, please. Now sell me a new car. Oh, yes, sir. Would you like all these options? No, and I don't want the warranty. But, yes, just go ahead and loan me $40,000, please, with no down payment. I'm good for it. You know what? They will. I go to the car dealership right now. I want a $40,000 car with no down payment, and I want to pay 2% interest. Okay, bud, here you go. That's life. That's my life, not his. So I was like, all right, I got somebody. I want to sell the car, right? Somebody might be able to buy this car for me. Well, then he texts me a couple weeks later, and he says, hey, you can donate your car to the church and then write it off on your taxes, and then the church can sell it back to me. Like, you can donate your car to the church for $2,500, write it off on your taxes, and then the church will sell it to me on payments for $1,000. And I called him back and I was like, listen, I said, did you text the treasurer about this? He said, oh, I did at the same time I texted you. So I was like, number one, you should talk to the treasurer about this before you decide you're just going to do it. So your first step would be to talk to me. Your second step's to, talk to him. If you got to talk to one of us first, but you don't just decide you're going to do this. And I've never met anybody like this before. Never in my life could I conceive of meeting somebody who's just some guy that I go to church with who says, go ahead and donate your car to the church and have the church sell it to me on payments. Like, where do you get off asking this? And I started thinking, and here's another thing. I'm autistic, okay? And I know that I've had a hard time, and if people have had a hard time with me because I've been autistic. And why did I get by? Because I'm really smart, and because I come from a family of resources, and because I come from a supportive family, And we didn't know what autism was. But when I eventually self-diagnosed myself and went to the psychiatrist, I have the means to be educated enough to recognize it in myself. It was recognized in my children by my wife, and we got therapy for them, and I can afford to go to a therapist to talk about things, and I can form like improvement plans for myself. And over the course of my career, before I knew I had autism, I could miss promotions and not keep jobs. Like at the firm, you're either going to get promoted out or you're gone. Like, this guy can't be a partner the way he talks to people. Like, I could take those L's and be like, well, I got 2 master's degrees. You keep giving me L's. I can get a job doing something, man. I can do taxes in the corner, with a strip mall if I have to. I'm CPA. I'm going to do something. Like, I could take L's and recover. Where people of his means, he can't take L's and recover. So I'm thinking, maybe this guy has autism. That's why maybe he has no self-awareness. Maybe that's why he talks loud. And it's hard to be autistic, but you know what makes it easier to be autistic is to be really smart. My IQ is in the 90th, 91st percentile. I am smarter than 9 out of 10 people that you meet. And the average IQ, I think, is 100. In America, it might be a little lower, which is kind of sad. But in an office full of accountants, I'm a little bit smarter than everybody. Put me in a church where it's just a cross-section of people, I'm a lot smarter than a lot of people. This guy, not very smart. So I explained to him how inappropriate he was. And I was like, listen, you don't know my business. Like, you don't even know if I itemize my tax deductions or I take the standard deduction. You don't even know that. How would you know that I would even get a tax benefit? And by the way, I take the standard deduction because the standard deduction is huge now. I said, second of all, if I donate $2,500 to the church, either in cash or in kind, something like a car, I don't get $2,500 off my taxes. I get 10% of $2,500 off my taxes, because that's my marginal tax rate. And here's the person. This guy is probably, if he files taxes, files a 1040 easy. So he doesn't know. So I'm saying, number one, you're wrong. It's inappropriate. So number three, that's a form of tax evasion, to donate something and know the church is going to sell it for less. Because if I know somebody's going to sell it for $1,000 and I donate it for $2,500, is it really worth $2,500? And he, to his credit, he apologized for that. But that led me into the conversation of, this isn't the first weird thing you've done, and we have to have a conversation about it. I said, he has a cleaning company. And I thought, like, when he says, I've got a cleaning company, like, he's got people, I didn't know him from Adam, like, he's got ladies who go clean houses and work for him. No, it's just him. He's going to go clean your house. I'm not letting some male clean my house with my wife and kids. Have you ever? That's why we call it a cleaning lady. If there's a male in your house that you're paying to clean your house, he's your butler and he lives there. Like Jeffrey off Fresh Prince. Like in my neighborhood, we have cleaning ladies. These people come and they clean. And my cleaning lady had retired. And he gave me this, it was a 1-year contract that he wanted signed and notarized. And I'm like, I don't have a cleaning contract with my cleaning lady. She just comes and cleans with her other cleaning lady. And then we give her a check or give her some cash for whatever we agreed to. There's no contract. So that made me think, like, why in the world is this dude trying to, like, wrap people in the... He must be impossible to deal with. And then I said, listen, I talked to my wife about hiring you as a cleaner, and you didn't tell me you were a felon. And he got so mad at me and talked about how long ago it was. And he eventually just basically said, don't ever talk to me again. I was like, well, okay, fine, I won't. And he used to sit right behind me. I mean, right in the pew behind me at church. He was really friendly to me. And after that, he moved. He did come apologize and say, well, I was wrong about the car thing. And I said, he's like, well, I just don't have any etiquette. I'm like, listen, man, that's okay. But we got to have the conversation that we were having when you hung up. And we're not going to have it right now. But for me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back of all the weirdness. And of course, there ended up being weirdness with everybody else too. And basically, eventually, it was him saying, I'm never coming back here. And then we had the very uncomfortable incident when some guy that we think is not a normal person in the head come into our church, the side door, like, what's he going to do? Is he going to attack us? Well, he didn't attack us. He just took his little thing and walked off. But that's what got us to the point of now we got to put a restraining order or no trespass on this guy. But here's the question. Between day 1 and day, 210, there was some point where we needed to say, and maybe it's day 210 and maybe it's day 1, you can't come back. Please just don't come here anymore. I'm going to tell you this. If you tell somebody that right off, I don't think they're going to be as big as a threat to your church because they don't have anything invested in it. Scammers, and I think this guy, I basically think this guy was sort of a scammer who played to people's sympathies. And you can be stupid and do this. And I think there's a lot of people who are of like low means and low abilities. Like they know they can't get by, but they're in a sense street smart. They can find better off people and make those people feel sorry for them in order to get things from them. My college roommate was sort of like this. He wasn't poor, but he was just one of my best friends, but his mom was a real bear of a woman. Just a very strong personality. She ruled her household. I mean, her and her husband loved each other very much. They were together a long time, but like, she was the authoritative person in that relationship. And when I moved into my roommate, I could tell like the way he, I don't want to say negotiated, but the way he would get his way is to say, all right, okay, if that's what you want to do. And then like try to make the other person feel sorry for him so he could get his way. Because if you go head to head with his mom, you lose. And I think that was something that he adapted. And unfortunately, like, he try that with your autistic roommate. Okay, we'll do it my way. You're right. Let's just do it my way. He thinks like I'm walking all over him. And then I figured out like, oh, I'm supposed to relent. But people who've been homeless, have been in jail, they learn how to get through, and I think just shiftless, lazy people do this too. They learn how to get through life by making people feel sorry for him. And I figured this guy out 100% sure. I was always like 60, 70% sure as time went on, but 100% probably a couple months ago. But I'm not the pastor. And listen, he was there while I was thinking about joining the church. I think I joined the church after he started coming. So then, if I'm not a church member, what am I going to say? But when I became a church member, it's like, now I have a concern with this person. Now I'm having conversations with the deacon about this person. And this is from my experience. If you have a problem with somebody, if you have a concern, day 1, Barney Fife, nip it in the bud. Bring it up right then. And trust the Holy Spirit, if it's not legit, to work between the two Christian brothers and work it out. Because the fact of the matter is, this guy's letter from his previous church said he was, disruptive and troublesome and argumentative and teaching falsely. But you think, maybe they think he's a false teacher because he's reformed. I don't think he's really reformed at all. I think he's just trying to take advantage of us and say that. So I'm going to tell you, when do you ask somebody to leave? As soon as you get the feeling. And Jeff asked, what does a pastor do? I would say as soon as you feel that your people are in some kind of spiritual danger or they're unreasonably uncomfortable, that's when you start to take action maybe. And this is my life lesson, because I'm like, my little baby 4-year-old was with me in the service, because it's a family integrated church. She's not a baby, but she's my baby. She's my youngest. And the first thing I did when he walked in is I went and grabbed her up, because I was just about to walk out and take. I don't think he was there to shoot us or anything. I think he had a gun. He's lucky he didn't get shot, because there's a lot of guns in my church. But the first thing I was going to do was get my kid out of that situation. If he stood up there and started yelling and going on, I was going to get my kid out of that situation. He didn't. He just walked off. And I'm going to tell you the difference. When I did walk out after he left, I walked out because the pastor wanted me and the deacon to kind of handle what was going outside to call the cops. I just told my daughter, I said, go sit with the guy who sits in front of me. That's the difference. The guy who sits in front of me is another dad. I said, go with him, honey. Just sit with him. He's the kind of guy I could leave my kid with, versus the other. I would never say, hey, go sit with that guy. Nope. So yeah, it's real easy to decide when a church member should leave, right? You disfellowship them because of some heresy. But what if somebody who just comes, you put them out, like legally in a trespass sense, when they start to become an interruption to the peace of the body, and when it's apparent that they're not there to potentially join the body, but to take advantage of the body. It may take you a week to figure that out. It may take you a month. And everybody got different discernment. He also, no, I'll just leave that part out. Thanks for listening to The Christian Commute. Lord willing, I'll be back with you again either Thursday or Friday. And Lord willing, we'll talk about Gig Eva. God bless.